Okay. I'm Moshe. It's my channel. I live in Israel in the Galilee. I'm a Levite, also a Cohen, if that means anything to you. And today we're going to basically do something a little different for me. We're going to discuss the wars in the Middle East and the Pacific and Russia with Ukraine and Europe. And be a big focus on Houthi rebels in Yemen. And I'm going to provide Bible prophecy with it, which is different. Not so much for me, although the title is different, but for the, tens of thousands of people on the internet. They don't usually do this, or if they do it, they get it all confused with the churchianity nonsense from Schofield. And I don't want to be unfair and keep Darby out of it either. Or Ryrie or all the other ones. Okay, so today's 22nd of December. It's a Friday. It's 9:45 in the morning. For us, it's cold and rainy. Sadly, it's going to keep up through Sunday, which is hard for me. The high today will be 65 or 66, but it's not going to feel that way because it's cold and damp. And the houses in Israel are built to be colder than it is outside by 10 or 15 degrees. So you could see I'm bundled up. I got lined blue jeans on, a t-shirt, a Carhartt thermal shirt, and a Carhartt heavyweight sweatshirt that's supposed to be waterproof, although I haven't really tested and I hope I don't have to. But it feels different, and the sucker's warm. Okay, so let me, while we got to give a little bit of time for people to come in, they got to get notices and, respond to the notice and then log in and all that. So let me go into the live stream, not for a long time. I see we got sound and picture. And I will do a few things in the chat real quick, and I mean real quick, and then we'll get started, okay? We'll jump right in after that. And this is always a situation when you do live streams, if you don't pause it a little, make small talk in the beginning, people come in and they don't quite understand what's happening, and you gotta backtrack. So it's easier to do it this way. And we gotta be fair with everybody as much as we can here to spread the gospel. But I do provide what a lot of people call intel, because I live here. I have spent a lot of years living in Israel. I don't have a military background. I have a law enforcement background when I was younger, including in Israel. And I do what I can do here. So I think I'm pretty good with it, and I try to be careful what news I pick up. I translate from Arabic, Farsi, although there's very little of anything on Farsi. That's the Iranian language, and they monitor their social media like you won't believe. And I look at various Arab Muslim type publications that are anti-Israel for more insights and mostly a lot of social media. So I generally will get the news 12 hours. I'll post it 12 hours before it's going to hit the mainstream media. And I do find a lot of the stuff that people are posting on social media is just not true. One person posts it to get clickbait, and then, 3 or 10 copy it, and it's not true. We flooded one tunnel as a test, and the test was successful. Beyond that, we really haven't gone. And I see social media, including a left-wing Israel publication, posting that the IDF and the government of Israel is brainwashing the Israelis and we're not winning in Gaza. And that is quite far from the truth, really is. So I siphon through this stuff, What I found is that people that don't understand Bible prophecy for real, that report on news and the war and all this stuff, don't really get it right. They can't look beyond what's being put out there in the news. They don't get it. Okay, almost done. What happened here? Something just got screwy. Oh, there it is. Again. Having difficulties here. Give me a second. Speak up loud. Let me check the volume. No, I checked it. Let me check it again. Yeah, that should help. I just jacked up the volume, so you should be hearing things better. Since we're a Bible-believing site, let me do our praise and we'll proceed. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 His name can't be Jesus, although I know people mean in their heart they reference him, and certain people anyway. But there's no J in the Hebrew alphabet, so it can't. Father God, Jehovah's name cannot be Jehovah. There's no J in existence in the Hebrew. Nor could it be Jesus. There's no J. There's also no TH sound, like goeth forth. It's an abrupt T. So there's a lot of things that these people, when they say they translated out of the Hebrew and stuff like that, they basically copied each other's translations. And when you go back to the Wycliffe and the Tyndale many centuries ago, they're just Catholic renditions of the Bible. They couldn't possibly understand enough Hebrew to do any real good work based on knowing something about Bible Hebrew, which is nothing like spoken Hebrew in Israel. Okay, give you a case in point. In to the Israelis, Kemen, I'm transliterating, means Yemen. It doesn't. It's south. Now, since Yemen is all the way south onto Saudi Arabia, so to speak, well, they say, but Yemen is actually, biblically speaking, Sheba. Yeah. The Queen of Sheba wasn't from Africa, she was from Yemen. I'm drinking a cup of onion soup to warm up. I was sitting outside working. My hands are still a little numb. It's so nasty out there. So it says that Solomon gave her all she asked for. So the common interpretation for that I don't think is 100% founded, is that Solomon laid up with her. He's the guy running around with 1,000 wives or so, plus concubines, so maybe. If that's the case, and she had a child, which is what tradition says, not Bible, then the child would have been from the line of Judah, not a lost tribe. Thus, you could explain the Yemenite Jews, most of which came to Israel a long time ago. They're usually kind of dark-skinned in a Middle Eastern way, not in an African way. I'm an Ashkenazi, so my skin is typically olive-colored, but they're, several shades darker than me usually, but they're not. They have, Anglo features. They're not African type, but we're deviating. So let's proceed. The war in Gaza. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I've been watching this for about 10 days. This morning I posted that I did it at 8 something, after 8 o'clock in the morning. The last attack by missile from Gaza was yesterday afternoon, which is a long pause in getting missiles out of Gaza. So when they say that we're losing the war, come on, when I'm seeing it, The missiles are stopping. Our casualty rate, I would say, is something like 0.5% compared to the Hamas, or maybe 1/8 of 1%. It's quite low. When an Israel military, let's call them a platoon or a squad, goes to attack someplace, the commanding officer goes in front. Yes, they do. I don't know any other military that does that. That could be a captain, it could be a major, a colonel, or the equivalent thereof. We have a rank called brigadier colonel, but it would be unusual for a colonel, but not for a captain. And they go in front. I mean, I'm not saying we put our brigadier colonels and generals right out in the front line. We don't do that because that's not their job. So that's one big reason why the casualty rate is so low. Now you guys can clock what I said. It'd be tedious to do it, but for about 10 days or 2 weeks, I posted, we haven't had any rocket attacks for so long. I'm not kidding about this. I watched it, including today. Most of the time I do that. We get an attack from Gaza within 5 or 10 minutes. Do with that as you may, but I'm not lying about it. So yesterday in the afternoon, we had an attack of almost 30 rockets, mostly central Israel, going towards Tel Aviv. Some were shot down by our anti-missile systems, and some landed, but I don't think anybody got killed. There was some property damage. So it's interesting. Let me see if I can put these pieces together for you a little better. Someone's watching me. But Yehovah and Yeshua are also watching me. Okay, let's see what actually happened right after I posted it. Because sometimes, I mean, it's a possibility it could come out of Lebanon. They could be doing it too. But let's take a look. I'll go to the red alerts, which are in my Telegram. If you want to join my Telegram, download the app. It's called Telegram Messenger. They got over 700 million subscribers. It's free. The app's free. It's all free. Okay? And then send me an email and just put Telegram in the subject header. You don't have to give me a discourse. It's a waste of your time. And I'll send you the invite link for Telegram. So as the app, when the app's installed, you click on the invite link, and in, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, you'll be in. I update that probably 100 to 200 times a day with different posts. Being a believer, I don't take other people's posts and copy them without giving credit to them. I don't think that's the way you're supposed to play the game. So I give credit to the source. On rare occasions, I don't. Like if it's a very questionable Muslim social media place in Gaza or, Lebanon or something like that, I don't want to drive people to that kind of place. But normally, 90% of the time, or 98%, I post who it came from. Or I might say translated from Arabic or Farsi, so you'll understand it came from questionable sources. Because these people are engaged in a propaganda war against us. So they'll post 3 or 4 accurate news articles about the war and then put a ringer in that's not real. So I look for that. So there's a phenomenon going on right now where there's several very popular channels in social media. That could be Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all over the place, websites. And they use airplane tracker programs. And if the airplane has a transponder turned on, which military aircraft wouldn't if it was trying to be stealthy, they can pick up what kind of a plane it is, I think, like a C-17 cargo or something like that. And they could pick up where it left from and where it went. And then they see a bunch of C-17s going to Israel. Well, from America, they see this is cargo, military equipment coming into Israel, same if it's coming from Europe, okay? They do the same thing with warships, using ship tracker. And again, if the transponder's turned off, they don't get it. If it's so, If it's on, they get it. Now that's a lot more useful because they could see that this is a warship and the name of the warship and where it is. And that I would have to say can have some value. But with the airplanes, it's ridiculous. Let me tell you what one of the really great big guys on social media is doing. He's seeing flights coming from the war zone, which, as you'll see from context, would have to mean Israel. So he's seeing C-17s come in and go back to America. So what this character is telling people is that they're taking people from Gaza and they're putting them on planes and flying them into America. Now, I want you to know that I spend so many hours on the internet looking at this stuff with so many people in Israel also monitoring it. And I read them, and I'm sure they read me. And they don't like me because of my Bible studies, but one even called me a charlatan. So this is the kind of thing they do. And there's no evidence for this. Now, Israel's a very small country. And there's a lot of people in the military now that have been activated from the reserves and the regulars. So staffing at stores is down, banks, because they're in the military. They're activated. And many are in Gaza, including some distant relatives of mine. And they're not reporting any of this. To take them out of Gaza and bring them into Egypt and have the planes pick them up in Egypt is not what they're reporting. And Egypt wouldn't allow this, I don't believe. Egypt keeps saying they don't want to have a single Gazan in. And some of them go out over the crossing into Egypt for medical treatment and stuff like that. And they have them under armed guard with soldiers to make sure they don't run away. They even built mounds. How do I describe this? You take bulldozers and you pile dirt, like it looks like a good 20, 30 feet high. So it's a slope. And that's one way to contain them in. You can't cut that with a wire cutter or something and get through like you could a conventional, fence. So if this, they're going to be seen climbing over the mound and then climbing down. His mounds are pretty broad. They're probably 40 feet, 50 feet wide. You're not going to just jump over it. So they got enough time to apprehend them or shoot them if they try it. So I seriously doubt that this is real. Okay? I'd hear about it. Because the soldiers in Gaza would see it. They'd be enlisted for security, and nobody's talking about it anywhere in Israel. Now, early on, they might have evacuated some people from Gaza that had American passports. This would have been a long time ago, like, 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And that we heard about, but it wasn't very many. So, this is phony stuff. Not that this guy is sitting there and wanting to make it out intentionally be phony. They're taking data. They spend probably a long time and many hours looking at these aircraft and ship tracking programs that you can find on the internet, and then they try to interpret them. And It's a bad interpretation. Biden's not doing anything like that. Congress would probably hit the roof. Now, there might be a couple of hundred that were U.S. passport holders. Like I said, weeks and weeks ago that came in, but yeah. They're not doing that. The implication is that Biden's going to remove the Gazans and bring them into America consistent with his open border policy. But I have zero evidence of that, and I believe I would know if it was going on. Either official publications or it would be rumblings on social media and nothing. I don't even hear the Arabs talk of this. You can't keep a secret like this with these kind of people that are, poorly educated and poor, and it's not real. I don't think it's real. So does it mean that people that say this are actually trying to hurt the American government? Probably not. They believe it. There's so much bad information about things that happened that never happened, and motivation that's not real. So I was going to check the red alerts. Let me get back to that. So I saw a missile attack at 9:05. Right now it's 10:11. And that was from Lebanon. And I see another one at 8:37 from Lebanon. And I see one from 8:31 in the morning. Okay, so it was all Lebanon, not Gaza. Now let me look at what time I posted. There were no rockets. Remember, they started 8:31 and 8:37. I'm going into Telegram to find the post and check the time I said that. I said it at 8:26 in the morning. Last Gaza missile attack was at 1:30 p.m. yesterday. You can check it on my Telegram. I posted it at 8:26 a.m. And about 5 minutes later, they started attacking. Now, Gaza didn't attack. In this case, Hezbollah picked up the slack. Okay? Now, I've been a ton of incidents like this. It's like so many, I'm almost afraid to post. We haven't had missiles for so long. You can verify it. Okay. To go back and verify it all the other 10 days or so I did this, or more, would be very tedious, and it's not really conclusive to a lot. All right. So now the Houthis are trying to get a peace treaty cooking with Israel using the UN and the various sources, Biden and so forth. The talk a couple of days ago was that they would give us 40 hostages. And we would go for, there was either a 1 week or a 2 week ceasefire. And that has fallen apart because they were saying they're not doing any ceasefires for hostages unless it's a permanent end of the war. Now, as God would have did structure things, what you don't hear in the media very much, although we do in certain Israeli medias, is that Netanyahu is under 3 criminal indictments with trials going on. But because of the war, they're not actively going on. But they started them already in the courts. Netanyahu is expected to drag these trials out for years. They're for corruption. Okay? And they total 16 years in jail if he got a maximum penalty, which probably wouldn't happen, but it could. And I told you before this war started that Netanyahu would do anything to get out from under this. He tried doing judicial reform, which was to break the power of the courts. And he passed a few laws, but he was headed towards what's called the French law in slang in Israel, which means it's a law they have in France that the prime minister can't be prosecuted civilly or criminally. In other words, you can't take his deposition, you can't give him interrogatories, you can't do anything while he's prime minister for anything he did as prime minister or anything he did when he wasn't prime minister. So basically anything he did while being prime minister is immune. He's immune from. So he wanted to pass that law, and to get there, he had to strike down the power of the Supreme Court. Now, we have a 3-branch democracy: the judicial, the Supreme Court, we call it the High Court, really. Then you have the legislative, which is our one house, Congress, the Knesset, 120 seats, and we have the executive branch. Which is the prime minister, Netanyahu. And his political party, the Likud, controls, to a great extent, the legislative. So if he stripped the power of the Supreme Court to do anything about what he did, he would basically be a dictator. And they were making pictures of him, dressing him up like Caesar with a crown on his head and all that. What he did get past, the Supreme Court was about to strike down before the war started, and I'll tell you what those were. One was called the reasonable doctrine. The Supreme Court usurped power, probably, because it's not written in our basic laws, but they started probably in the 80s, which is a long time ago, striking down actions the government did, not laws, actions, by saying they're not reasonable, stop it. So if they passed the law that said anybody who makes an illegal U-turn gets a fine of $50,000, they would strike it down and say it's not reasonable, you can't do it. Now that's an absurd example. Then Netanyahu, because they were going to remove Netanyahu from office, when you hear the background, you're going to understand where I'm going. They don't talk about this in the media much. He passed a law because he made an agreement with the High Court when he ran for this term of prime minister that he wouldn't intervene with the judicial system because they were concerned that he would change laws to get himself out from his criminal cases. So he went back on his word and started passing laws with his buddies in the Knesset. Now, this is really important to understand what's going on in Israel right now. So he had a law passed because he was afraid the Supreme Court was going to remove him from office because he violated this agreement with the court. So he was coming up with stupid answers like, well, how could I stay out of it? I'm prime minister and all that. Well, yeah, we know better. The court knows better. Everybody knows better. So he passed the law in the Knesset that said that the prime minister could only be removed from office for health reasons. Like he got shot in the head, he had a stroke and can't talk, things like that. And in addition to that, it has to have a 75% vote in the Knesset, which is 75 out of 120. 75%, I'm sorry, 75%. So he needs 3/4, so it actually is 80 votes, which is ridiculous that, they're not going to be able to remove him with that law. So just before this war started, just before, the Supreme Court was ready to hear this because people filed lawsuits with the Supreme Court stating that this law needs to be struck down because he's destroying the democracy in Israel, which is true. Anybody that knows anything about, constitutional law or anything like that would know that. Now, Israel has no constitution. They have something that's remotely similar, but nowhere near the same thing. They're called the basic laws. Now, the reason they won't do a constitution is out of 9.6 million people, 1.6 million are Arab citizens, and most of which will tell you they're Muslims, and they're afraid of that. So, I got the heater on, so it's getting hot in here, but it's nice, it's warm. I don't wear any yarmulkes or kippas. I like this for my eyes. I get shade, so I wear Western hats. This isn't a kubra. It's made out of rabbit fur, but not regular rabbits. It comes from Australia. It's H-A-R-E, hair. And you can literally take a garden hose and pour I've seen people on YouTube do it, pour garden hose, coming out rather strong, on the hat. And the only area it's going to get into is with the holes, the vent holes, which this hat has none. And they're not as soft as a good beaver hat, but they're rather inexpensive. And they'll last, 25 to 100 years. And they're, if you get the right size, they're comfortable, they're durable, they're sturdy. So when it's rainy weather, I have a few Kubras. I like this one. I need to brush it though. It's got dust in it, but I got old man eyes and I need all the help I can get, so this shades it. If you wear a baseball cap, what happens is this. You got a visor in the front and the sun from the side gets you. And then the sun hits the back of your neck when it's warm. And it doesn't do much to help your vision, to block the sun out. So when you have a Western hat, which this really is, this is sort of copied after the TV show Justified, that hat. And it blocks the sun all around, and it's nice. The other thing I found, which you might find interesting, is if you go out in weather up to 80 degrees and you wear a straw hat, like a nice Stetson straw or a Resistol or one of those, and you put it on and you take a hat like this or a beaver hat, you put it on, you're going to sweat just as much with the straw and the beaver. The straw hats don't breathe unless you get some of them that aren't really, they got like a lattice thing on the sides for massive vent, but then the sun can get in, Straw hats have their limitation. That's why when you go back and look at pictures of let's call them the cowboys, the Western people that worked on ranches and stuff, In the 1800s and early 1900s, you don't see straw hats. You can't wear them in the rain unless you buy, in the old days, resistol made hats that were waterproof, and so did Stetson. I think they still make a few. I have some. They're like antiques I bought on eBay, real cheap, and you can wear those in the rain. But the good straw hats have very small pieces of straw with a tight weave, and they don't breathe worth a hoot. So anyway, enough on hats. So Netanyahu was very scared because it looked like the Supreme Court was going to strike down this remove the prime minister law. And they should have, and they were more than likely going to, and they were asking for people to submit briefs that were for or against it so they could review it, and they were getting ready to rule on it, and then comes the Gaza war. Netanyahu was in disfavor with America, with Biden. Biden invited Gallant, the defense minister, to the White House, and he received Herzog, the president of Israel. Now, the president of Israel is basically the Secretary of State. That's the power he has. Not much. And he is voted into office independent of Netanyahu, so Netanyahu has zero control over him. I think the term is 5 years. Prime minister is 4 years. It might be 7 years. I don't know. It's a long term. Herzog is fairly worthless, left-wing, does nothing good. It's just nothing. Hot air, rich guy, you know. So on February 20th, well, all of a sudden Biden pops up one day and says, yeah, Netanyahu could come visit the White House. We're going to invite him. Out of nowhere, Netanyahu did nothing. And then February 20th, Netanyahu goes and visits Biden and comes back. I don't know, 1 or 2 days. A little more than 2 weeks later, the October 7th massacre happened. Millions of reports are saying that Israel was notified about this and ignored it. Now, I remember this day very well. I was sitting outside. It was summertime, although it was October. It was summertime. I had a t-shirt and shorts on. My wife was still visiting America, and I was out there getting ready for my broadcast, and all of a sudden, maybe 5:30 in the morning, something like that, 6, barrages of rockets were coming in from Gaza nonstop, hundreds and hundreds. My red alert is set to show the rockets coming in all over Israel. And my phone couldn't keep up with it. It just kept going off. And I said, what the heck is this? And I said to myself, well, another 10, 20 minutes, the IDF will be bombing and it'll stop. Nothing. It took between 3 and 4 hours before the IDF actually started bombing Gaza. Like, usually it's not 3 minutes. It's, 15 minutes. It could even be 20, 25 minutes or something like that. Not, let's say, 3.5 hours, nothing like that. I'm approximating 3.5 hours, or at least 3 hours. I was sitting there watching this. First, I thought it was a malfunction, and then I was up so early in the morning. I get up early. The other social media sites weren't carrying it yet, and I had to wait about 45 minutes or an hour, and other people were carrying it. And we realized it was a legitimate attack, not a hack of the system. It took a long time, maybe 6, 7 times, 8 times longer than normal. Now, let's talk about Gaza. It's got a fence, and we got a lot of troops posted there all the time. We have cameras infrared and regular, so we monitor the whole area. We have sensors that pick up people walking. We have outposts, which are towers, sort of kind of like what they put in jails in America, but they're made out of wood usually. They go up, I don't know, 20 to 30 feet in the air, maybe 40. And they got a roof, and they got an open, they got a wall up to maybe the waist, and then they're open. And they put a few soldiers in there, and they have binoculars, and they watch manually, with binoculars. They just look. They have guns. And we also have trackers, which are normally Bedouins that are in the military. They go in the military, and they're like the old Apache Indians or Navajos or Cherokees or whatever that know how to track people. And, the Green Berets, Navy SEALs, and SAS and all these, they have the same skill set. They know how to do that too. And they came in at, 2, 3, 4,000 of them. Hamas, what they call special forces, and regular Gaza or Palestinian civilians came in with them to loot, plunder, pillage, steal, murder, rape. And they killed, 1,450 people or something like this. And the soldiers in these outposts, these lookout towers, were killed or captured. And they were screaming for help. They have radios, cell phones. And they didn't get any help. And help didn't come in for 7 or 8 hours. Okay? Now, help usually comes in 7 or 8 minutes. Soldiers will come in on Humvees, which have light machine guns mounted on them, 30 calibers, sometimes a 50. That's a rather potent weapon, And helicopters would come in. Ground troops would come in. All sorts of stuff would happen. In minutes. It didn't. And they broke into houses, captured Israelis, murdered them, killed them, burned the houses, burned them alive in cars and otherwise, put a baby in an oven and roasted it alive, cut a fetus out of a woman while she was alive, and they found the umbilical cord still attached to her cut open body, raped women so bad that they killed them. They raped them to death, and then some, necrophilia, and they broke the pelvises of these women. That's how much they raped them. And they killed children in front of their parents, parents in front of the children, and took children captured. I put pictures of this up on my Telegram. I had small children, 2 in a cage. When I mean a cage like you'd see in a veterinarian's office to put dogs and cats in while they were, admitted to the veterinarian hospital. They had them in there. And I don't want to go through the atrocities. They were extreme. And now you ask yourself this question: what really happened? It's obvious, I think. Okay. So Israel is going to enter into, I would say there was something going on with Biden and Netanyahu, obviously. And this gives Biden the opportunity to enter into the Middle East big time. Biden said they would help us with Lebanon. They haven't done anything in Lebanon. We're doing it on our own. They're giving us a lot of equipment and weapons and bombs and stuff like that. That I grant you, but that's it. I don't think a single American jet, plane, helicopter, or soldier fired a round in Gaza or Lebanon. Not one bullet. Okay? So as the Hamas war is winding down, the Hezbollah war is winding up. As the Hamas war is winding down, the Houthis in Yemen are winding up. As the Hamas war in Gaza is winding down, we're starting to see rockets come into the Golan Heights of Israel from Syria. Every day, every other day. Lightweight, but it's happening. Israel basically was suffering a revolution in the West Bank, mostly in Hebron and Jenin, maybe one or two other places. And we had to use military action, jets bombing, drones, helicopters, tanks, armored personnel carriers, and soldiers, and we had battles that were running for up to 2 or 3 days in some of these places. It stopped. We knocked them out. These were terrorists affiliated with Al-Fatah or ISIS or Hezbollah or Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad or who knows what other groups, right? And they had weapons and were shooting at our soldiers. Assault weapons, full auto, some rocket-propelled grenades inside Israel. Netanyahu was prime minister for 20 years. How did all these weapons get inside Israel? Now, this guy I referred to as a curse on Israel. This Netanyahu. So what I'm saying is I told people this way before the war started, Netanyahu will throw Israel into a war to keep from going to jail because the Israeli people are under the belief, misconceived I would say, that you don't change your prime minister during a war because it shows division. Well, if the prime minister is suspicious and they have investigations pending against what happened on October 7th with the government. Now, if these investigations are handled by the legislature or prime minister or his military, I wouldn't expect much to happen, but they could be handled by the high court. Or committees in the Knesset that don't like Netanyahu could participate. And I said that Netanyahu would see, if he could, Israel destroyed before he went to trial and, had an actual conviction. Because he's, 72, 73, a potential 16-year sentence if he dies in jail. Plus there would be financial consequences. So, I'm sorry to say it looks like it's coming to pass. What he's doing now is keeping us in perpetual war, okay? There's a lot of hostages that are still in Gaza that have American passports, and about a month ago, Biden stopped talking about them. It didn't seem like we were getting any hostages back. Hostage families went to the White House and met with Biden, and it flared up a little and it died right then. We recently captured hundreds of soldiers of Hamas. They surrendered. And we interrogated them. And, if you're thinking waterboarding and torturing, you're off track. You waterboard and torture people, they'll confess to anything eventually. If you think that the Hamas people had trained them to give the same cover stories to make it believable, no. They don't have that sophistication level. They're very uneducated people. So, and they're disposable, throwaway assets. They're not. The regular Hamas soldiers are no value to them. Life is cheap to these terrorists. So we apparently picked up intel that there are hostages that are alive. They didn't tell us. They told us they got such intel, but they didn't tell us where the hostages are being kept, which could be a very good reason why they're not flooding the tunnels yet. Hamas would be smart to keep them in the tunnels. Hamas is desperate right now because they're about to be their military capabilities against Israel are probably down by 75, 85% right now. Not much left they can do except hide and hope for the best. Hezbollah seems to have no interest in attacking Israel in wholesale quantities. They will look like Gaza. And we're sending soldiers home in the reserves, mostly from Gaza, to visit their families now. This has been going on for maybe a week. And they come back, they get so other soldiers are just being sent home forever because they don't need them anymore. And some forces are being moved up towards Lebanon. We have a good, strong army up by Lebanon with lots of mobile artillery, lots of tanks, lots of armored personnel carriers, lots of everything. There's not going to be any intrusions likely from Lebanon where they come around and go house to house. It's not going to happen. Now, Hezbollah has threatened that they have hundreds of thousands of different types of missiles. If they had that many, I don't think the Israeli government would be behaving the way it is. I think Israel let all these media claims of massive amount of weapons go by without responding to them because they didn't want to let Lebanon know that they know. And it creates fear in the people, and then the people say, yeah, let's increase our military. And the government usually likes that. Okay? Most governments in the world like having a big, strong military. So Israel has so far purchased 75 F-35s at $100 million apiece. Have they to date helped Israel? No. It's day 76 of the war. We're still taking rockets yesterday from Gaza, today from Lebanon. We ordered 50, and I think a few weeks ago we had 35. We might have 40 or 45 by now, I don't know. And then we put another order in for another 25. Now, we retrofit these. We're the only country that's allowed to do that I know of. And they're more advanced than what the Americans have. We put the Raytheon, I think Raytheon makes it, or one of the companies in Israel makes it. It's a 360-degree virtual helmet the pilot wears. So he sees like a holographic display of 360 degrees while he's flying. Now, he could also see the real, non-virtual reality at the same time. Okay? Like once, years ago, I had a Corvette that had a hologram display. It popped up in front of your windshield, and you could set it for tachometer, speedometer, and different gauges, depending what you wanted to see. And you'd still be able to see your real world, but you'd also see this virtual thing popped up in front of you. It was quite nice. And that was a 2000 Corvette, so I'm sure the technology is vastly, vastly improved. That was before I was in ministry and I was in the world, and I used to do pretty good for myself, thank the Lord. So, moving along, so now we're shifting into a big war with Lebanon, which again will keep the country from changing the prime minister, because that's how they think. And now comes the Houthis. Believe their ranks are 147,000, where Hamas, counting the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, came up close to 50,000. So they're more than 3 times bigger and more powerful than Hamas. Okay? Now, we saw the 300-mile network of tunnels in Gaza, and Israel has disabled 1,500 tunnel entrances / exits. Okay? And they're still down there. I don't think the tunnels were severely damaged by bunker buster bombs. Some of them go down over 100 feet. We were using American, roughly 2,000-pound bunker busters. I don't think they were doing a great job. In some cases they were, and the whole tunnel area collapsed, but in many, many other instances, nothing. These tunnels are made out of concrete, they're reinforced. They got support structures inside that I believe are made out of metal. They got toilets, sinks, air conditioners, electricity, kitchens, and small vehicles can be driven in the tunnels. I think most of the tunnels aren't going to contain a full-size car or an SUV, although some would. They'd probably use little, 100, 200 cc motorcycles. Now, there has to be a way they get air into the tunnels, right? If you're 60, 100 feet underground, you need to create something to bring air in. So you're going to need fans to create a draft to pull the air in. So why hasn't Israel looked for these generators or electrical sources or fans? Why haven't they done that? I don't know. It would seem to me that'd be one of the first things I would try to do. Maybe there's something I don't know. Maybe they would just open the tunnel entrances and put fans in. So killing the electricity wouldn't work because they'd have their own generators. But can you keep a generator inside the tunnel? Because it's going to create fumes. It's normally going to run not on electric power. It'll run on some kind of gasoline or diesel. Now, they could put battery banks in there that are charged with solar panels, but the amount of solar panels would be so large, they'd have to be the size of a 40-foot tractor trailer, and panels at least, even bigger. So we would see that. Why didn't we see that? Well, that's probably not what they're using. So the generators would most likely be above ground, although you could run the generators underground with an exhaust that blows the smoke outside above the surface, but then we would probably see and or hear that. Why didn't that happen? See what I'm saying? Generators above ground would make smoke and smell and noise. Why didn't we go around doing that? See, this is what I don't understand. And people are saying that Netanyahu was trying to drag the war out. A lot of people in Israel say that. Now, I don't know all the technology. Maybe they couldn't do it. We were getting a lot of missile launches up till a few days ago, and I couldn't understand why with all the soldiers down there, so I had everybody pray that it come out why. And I think it did. They took trucks. Now, like a 24, 26-foot, 23-foot U-Haul moving truck, that kind of truck, with a box, a metal box. And they cut the roof out of the truck. They probably put a tarp in its place, and they put missile launchers in there that were pods, so it could be 8 missiles or even 16 missiles. And they would open the tarp of the truck. They would get out of the bed of the box of the truck and go in the cab or go outside, and they would electronically fire these missiles out of the launcher, because the truck motor would provide plenty of electricity for that. They didn't need a big generator to do that. And although they probably put an auxiliary generator on to give it more electricity, and it would launch the missiles, then they get back in the truck, pull the tarp, that takes, 30, 45 seconds, and drive to another location. So when we attack the GPS coordinates of the launch site, they're, 3, 4, 5, 6, 800 meters away. So we had to learn to get wise to that. And we could have learned that by interrogating the surrendering Hamas soldiers. I suspect that's where we picked that up. We also found that they went into courtyards of schools and mosques. So the building is built like in a square, and inside they have a garden and dirt and all that. And they would dig a ditch in the courtyard right in the center so the missiles would clear the walls. And it would be, I guess, 20, 30 feet, 15 feet long, 4 or 5 feet wide, and 6 feet down. And they put missile launches in there, and they would detonate them remote with electricity because the guy couldn't stand in the pit while the rockets were firing because all the flames would burn them up. And that was also electronically discharged. And it took us a while to figure that one out, which is very understandable. And then we found a lot of those because we knew to look where to look. Look at hospitals, look at schools, look at mosques and courtyards, and we disabled those. And then we found out about the trucks. Now, we recently captured or arrested a guy that was the head of one of these hospitals that was over an underground terrorist base, and we interrogated him. And he made an admission, and we had it on social media. I put it on my Telegram site. He was actually, the head of the hospital was actually a general in Hamas. And he was in charge of the hospital, and he was, letting them keep weapons and munitions inside the hospital. Soldiers would come in and take over parts of the hospital and operate there, live there. And they were using the hospital like as a human shield to prevent us from attacking it, which really slowed down our progress because we had to convince the hospital to evacuate all the patients, and they were resistant. Well, why? They were working with Hamas. Hamas would kill them and their families if they didn't resist. And in cases we had to go in with ground troops, special forces, enter the hospital, have gunfights inside, and all this nonsense. And then eventually we would get the hospital evacuated, and there was Hezbollah command centers underneath it. They would access through the hospital, and we had to blow that up. So that's not something I would blame on Netanyahu, the IDF. I would say that just took us time to learn how they did it with the human shield stuff. So the rockets from Gaza are drastically reduced, which means we are winning. The next phase of the operation appears to be operating more heavily in South Gaza, where a lot of Hamas fled to. They have tunnels connecting North Gaza to South Gaza. South Gaza was where we evacuated the civilians to. We put them in tent cities. And then they started putting missile launchers right in between the tents and launching into Israel, so we had to stop that. We did. The total disregard for human life in general, Muslim or Jew, by Hamas and these terrorists is amazingly sick. We bring humanitarian aid in and they steal it from the Gazan people. Gazan people took to jumping and, hijacking the trucks, so to speak, to steal the food and water before Hamas could get to it. So the UN Security Council, or the UN General Assembly, one of them, is now talking about a vast increase in the amount of humanitarian aid going into Gaza. I think I heard triple or something like that. Now, what they're doing, the UN, is they're continuing the war. They're protecting Hamas. fuel comes in. They forced us to bring fuel in as humanitarian aid, and Hamas steals it. So they're obviously running generators, right? They're not driving Cadillacs and Escalades and Navigators and, trucks inside the tunnels. Then the tunnels aren't like that at all. They can't do that. If they had no fuel, their generators would not run, and they would have to come out of the tunnels, and then it's end game. You see what's going on? The nations are trying to help Hamas win without coming out and saying, we support killing and massacring and torturing and raping of Israeli citizens. Instead, they give them money and humanitarian aid and pressure Israel to stop fighting. It's the same net effect, just disguised. So pray that it be revealed why Israel is not destroying their generators before now. That's a mystery. The last time I asked everybody to pray about the missiles, it was innocent. It wasn't the fault of Israel. It was the cleverness of Hamas. So I want to check the chat and see if there's anything I need to respond to. Am I okay in my area? So far, I have been. I hear a lot of explosions coming from Lebanon and sometimes Syria. Nothing from Gaza, it's too far away. And I hear anti-missile missiles fired at incoming stuff, mostly from Lebanon or Syria. They're quite loud when they blow up. But that's the closest I've come to it. So Israel is, I think, the end of this phase of the war is going to be, they're going to flood the tunnels, but that could be a wild card. It may not work because Israel was, after capturing all these surrendering soldiers, they got involved with the negotiations again. Why? Because Israel must have realized that there are a bunch of hostages that are alive and they want to get them back. But Hamas is stupid. I mean, they can't win. Nobody's coming to help them. What are they going to do? The amount of Hamas soldiers that got killed, I would say, is maximum 2,000 or 3,000. By any stretch of the imagination, not 5,000. Counting Hamas and all the other terrorist groups, I think it's more like 2,000 or 3,000. And that's not a heavy loss. If they lost 18,000, 25,000, that would be crippling. Israel takes a position of killing the commanders, the officers, the high-ranking officers, and I would have to admit it has to have some value, but it hasn't really been decisive. Doesn't seem to me to be a great plan. Netanyahu likes to blow buildings up. Well, what I say is if you blow buildings up, you have plenty of soldiers left with no buildings. If you blow soldiers up, you'll have buildings left, but no soldiers to be in them. So what makes more sense to you? But the international pressure against killing civilians is so intense against Israel, they have to make concessions. Or Biden will freak out and maybe stop giving them bombs and weapons. Biden doesn't really want to see a winner in this war. This I'll tell you right now. He's taken the Kissinger approach and he doesn't want to see Hamas win and he doesn't want to see Israel win. But he does want to keep Hamas and the Palestinians in Gaza because it's part of Israel biblically, and he's trying to thwart or reverse Bible prophecy. If you think he's not serving the powers of the air and the unclean spirits, you better think again. Every country in the world right now is, every single one, no exception, not even the one I'm in. They're all serving the unclean spirits. And that's why we're in such tumultuous times, and it's just warming up. Now, the Houthis. We know there's a coalition of warships here that's large, and it's growing. And I'm going to take a fast break for a minute and come back, and we'll spend a lot of time on the Houthis. And you'll see we're headed into a massive war, guys. Not so much Israel as America. And I've made myself another cup of coffee, guys. All right. Wait a second. The Houthis are powerful, guys. They're not Hamas. They're bigger and better. They're more like Hezbollah, but worse. Hezbollah has, my estimate, counting reserves and regulars, 75,000 soldiers. About 50,000 regular and 25,000 reserves. Some estimates run a little higher, but I doubt it. So, their rocket reservoir, well, reserves are probably grossly exaggerated. And they are dangerous. But I do not believe they have the capabilities with their rockets that they say they do. And if they did, the Israeli government wouldn't be behaving the way they are towards these people. Okay? Towards Lebanon. It would be a completely different program. And the Lebanese government is even stating that they know they're going to be devastated. So, Israel's going to drive the Hezbollah back to the UN borderline, which is 15 miles north from the border with Israel. And that's by the Livni, L-A-V-N-E River. And that'll involve one of two ways. They'll bomb the Levites out of that 15-mile zone and get every possible Hezbollah installation blown up and not go in. That's going to be probably no more than 75% elimination of what they have there. So they'll probably have to go in. And that'll mean a big ground invasion. Thousands of soldiers, hundreds of tanks, lots of aircraft. Troop losses won't be that high. Would Hezbollah bomb or rocket and missile attack and drone attack the Lebanese territory in that 15-mile zone because Israel invaded? Probably. Can and will that cause a lot of casualties for Israel? Probably not that much. Because we'll bomb the smithereens out of them before the soldiers start walking in. And it'll be mostly armor going in with a lot of air support. Hezbollah uses a lot of shoulder-fired anti-tank missiles to attack troops, buildings, things other than tanks, although sometimes tanks. Because these are highly mobile and portable, if they use rocket launchers, we GPS coordinate it and blow it up in very rapid time, usually with artillery. So the response time might be 1 minute, a half a minute and a half, something like that. the amount of missiles that the country or Hezbollah has is nowhere near as important as the missile launchers. The only real portable missile launchers, highly portable, are the ones that get set up like this on like a tripod thing. And a few guys can carry it and the missile and, you know, that kind of thing. The missiles are 4 or 5 feet long and that thick, and they got a warhead equivalent to a mortar or an artillery shell. They're not that devastating. And they're completely inaccurate. They're terrorist weapons, and you just shoot them at a city and hope you hit them. The majority of them are going to go 8 to 12 miles. That's it. That's it. We've evacuated much of the border by Lebanon. Probably 90-95% of the people have evacuated. So there can be loss of property, but not so much loss of life. The ones that are there are just going to go in the bomb shelters and ride it out. Okay? What happens after that? Well, will America help Israel or not with this? I don't know. I'm quite certain they're helping Israel now with reconnaissance, surveillance flights from sophisticated drones and aircraft that Israel doesn't have as good as they do. And they're using those over Lebanon. The most advanced reconnaissance surveillance drone Israel has, America has, just showed up in Greece, which is in close proximity to Israel. Okay? And it is got a lot of bells and whistles in terms of being able to see at night. It uses radar, all different kinds of cameras. It has lots of features. And I don't think Israel has anything that good. Now, what are they using that for? Well, it's obviously coming to the Middle East. There's no fighting in Greece. It could stay in the air 30 hours. It can capture huge pieces of real estate and analyze it. And, well, the machine doesn't analyze it. It transmits it to where there's technical people. But it has the capability of transmitting the images it takes to the American warships. Of course, distance could be a factor. I don't know how far it can transmit. Now, it could be destined to be used in the Yemen theater. Maybe not Lebanon. They have in the past flown very sophisticated reconnaissance planes all over Lebanon. The Americans have. So I think, what credit is due, credit should be given. I think it's fair to say they were providing Israel with good reconnaissance information about Lebanon. Israel said they were going to blow the electrical grid out of Beirut, which would black out the whole country. Now, Biden probably told them not to do that because of the international uproar. Most of the civilians in Lebanon have been evacuated also near that 15-mile patch of land. So if Israel goes in and cleans out all their installations and then says, okay, it's time to go home and eat a falafel, within 48, 72, 96 hours, they'll be back. Wouldn't they? So Israel has to stay there and occupy that, which was called in 2006 a buffer zone. Israel really doesn't have any choice. How long? I don't know, a few months. Will Hezbollah keep the skirmishes up with the soldiers in this buffer zone? Probably. Maybe not. Will America help Israel attack Lebanon? I don't know. I would say it's 50-50. They threatened originally to stop anybody from opening a second front up against Israel. But then they kind of backpedaled and said what Hezbollah's done is not a real second front, it's just harassing. If Lebanon starts shooting a lot of rockets into big cities like Haifa, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and other places in Israel, will the Americans go in? I have no idea. I myself would not rely on them. But I don't know. Will they give Israel bombs and weapons? It looks so now, anyway. Now, I'll explain that soon. And reconnaissance, yes. Now comes the Houthis. They've stopped shipping. It's something like 12 to 15% of the world's shipping has been stopped to the Houthis attacking ships in the Red Sea, which connects up by Egypt and the Suez Canal. 25% of the income or the money for Egypt's economy comes from tax revenues or tolls from ships passing the Suez Canal. And they've lost 99% of that, I think. Ships are going around Africa, which is a delay of 9 to 14 days, and it's increasing prices and delay times. And insurance for ships going through the Suez Canal, I heard it was doubled. It'll probably triple. They'll probably just cancel insurance, you know. And a lot of these shipping companies may just self-insure. So basically the six biggest shipping companies, or six very, very big ones, have stopped using the Suez Canal temporarily. What America's doing is not going to work. The generals have to know that. Biden's not doing the right thing. They have the Dwight D. Eisenhower as little as 40 kilometers away from Yemen now. And they're going to start attacking Houthi ammo dumps, radar, command sites, you know, stuff they can hit that's above the ground. But any idiot in the military can tell you Lebanon's using tunnels and underground bunkers, as is Iran, as is Hamas. And the last piece of Iran's axis of evil is the Houthis. So why should I assume they don't have a big tunnel and underground bunker network? It'd be idiotic to assume that. Of course they do. So they've probably already moved many of their missiles underground and into secret locations and other resources that are valuable to them. They can attack ships with drones, with anti-ship missiles, with naval drones, and with artillery, because the pincher point where you come in from the Sea of Oman underneath Yemen into the Red Sea and pass through that pincher point is, at one point, I think it's as little as 15 or 18 miles. Artillery can go up to 25 miles. Artillery is not expensive. It's highly portable. Okay? And it's very deadly. And ships can't sustain artillery shells because they're going to catch on fire, go dead in the water, and other problems. artillery shells usually don't have big warheads. You might, get, I don't know, you might see 25 pounds or something like that of explosives, but it's enough to really damage a ship. Mortars generally won't reach. Shoulder-fired missiles, the ship would have to be pretty close to Yemen for a shoulder-fired missile to be, very deadly to the ship, but it would have to be within like 2 miles or something like that, which is probably not going to happen. So there's a multitude of things that the Houthis can do. So the Americans in their coalition, which I think is up to 15 or 20 countries, are going to have warships probably conducting convoys of maritime vessels. So you might have 4 warships with 40 or 50 maritime vessels escorting them through the Red Sea. I don't think the shipping companies are going to be comfortable with that, because if you have a big container ship and it gets hit by drones, missiles, rockets, artillery, and it goes down, they're going to probably lose hundreds of millions of dollars. And they usually have security people that work for large intelligence agencies or military intelligence agencies from big countries around the world, like France or Israel or the UK or America or countries like this. And they're going to advise against this, I think. Now, they may try it. If the Houthis just fire at the ships and the weapons interdicted by the Navy destroyers and stuff like that, it's not going to make the shipping companies feel very good. So the Americans in their coalition may be dumb enough to start with convoys, which the Houthis will take advantage of, but they actually have to attack the Houthis, and just attacking them by air is not going to work. Day 76 was still attacking Hamas, and yesterday they were launching rockets. And we've been in on the ground. So the only way that America and the coalition are really going to stop this is to go in on the ground. That's it. Now, I'm told there already are special forces in Yemen. There's several sources talk like that. And they would be discreet. The Yemen doesn't know they're there. They probably came in by sea or parachuted in surreptitiously, or came in from Saudi Arabia, or all the above. I don't know. And they're going to collect target packages for the Americans. And they're probably going to get ready for a ground invasion. And that is going to be extremely ugly, believe me. America and the coalition are going to get very frustrated about the way the Houthis are using human shields, like Gaza. Most likely, they may not, but they probably will. The Yemen government is going to sit there and bite the nails, say, what can I do, what can I do? They're more powerful than us, which is true. And they'll be slow to join in with the Houthis. They probably won't. Now, the latest development, you should really pay close attention to this. The Houthis have been amassing their forces inside Yemen to conduct an invasion on Israel. Now, they can't really get there unless they don't have Navy transport ships. Look, there's no way that the coalition is going to let the Houthis run with a few thousand troops and traverse up the Red Sea and the Suez Canal and come attack Israel. The chances of that are flat zero. That you're not going to see that. You can forget that. So the only real option open to them is to come through Saudi Arabia. That's it. If you go to the internet and you start looking for where Edom is, because we know in Bible prophecies all over the place, Edom is going to be totally destroyed. What you come up with is Edom is in North Saudi Arabia, not in Jordan. They use old Bible maps and stuff like that. That's where it really is. And that leads me to believe that the Saudi Arabians, being afraid of the Houthis, will let them pass through, minimally let them pass through Saudi Arabia or help them and turn against Israel. If the Saudis turn against Israel, they're friends with Russia, they're friends with Iran, they're friends with the Houthis, they're friends with Hamas, they're friends with Hezbollah and other militant groups, and they will not be hurt by these people. And America is certainly not anywhere near ready to start attacking Saudi Arabia. That's not on the card. That's not in the table here. So Saudi Arabia, not being the village idiots, are sitting around thinking, well, America may betray us like Afghanistan, so why should we cast our lot with America? America's doing nothing about the attacks on the bases in Iraq and Syria, nothing of any substance anyway. They're just doing token attacks. They're not getting serious. So they go with the Houthis. The Houthis have attacked the Aramco oil refinery twice in the last year and a half with drones or missiles and damaged it pretty good. Now, they were just doing warning shots, like one missile or one drone. If they start bombing it with 8 or 10 missiles, they could take the Aramco oil refinery, which is the largest Saudi Arabian one they have, which makes it very substantial in the world, and put it out of action for, 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever. Oil prices will rise. Oil prices, they say, are rising now, but I checked this morning, they were $74 and change a barrel. That's nothing. Gold's over 2,000. Well, gold was $2,047 early this morning, my time. So it keeps breaking the $2,000 barrier, and then they keep shoving it back down. They're very afraid. Once it goes into the 21 or 2200s, it's probably not going to go back to 2,000 for a long time. And if something big happens, the next big barrier is 2,500. And then 3,000. But it's going to take a lot for it to go to 2,500, over 2,500, a lot. Big time stuff. So if America goes in to Yemen, it's going to require a large amount of soldiers, ships, planes, equipment, money, and everything else, and it's going to be not a quick battle. It'll be, they don't have to wipe out the whole country. They just got to get the area near the Red Sea. Maybe they got to go in 40 miles or something like that. And it's going to take at least a month, probably 2. It's not going to be that long, but it's going to be long. They have no Navy, they have no Air Force. They have no anti-aircraft defenses that are worth a hoot. So it's not that big a deal. They got to go in, they got to blow up their artillery, their rocket launchers, missile launchers, find their tunnels, destroy their tunnels, get their weapons depots, and things like this. And cause them to retreat to other parts of Yemen, and then they probably have to leave soldiers there to prevent a return. Now, they might attack also, not just by land, by sea, they might come in by land via Saudi Arabia. This could happen also. So then the Saudis would turn against the Houthis. Saudi Arabia is trying to figure out what their best shot is. The UAE and Saudi Arabia usually work together hand in hand, but this time they're not. With the Houthis, they're not so together. UAE has joined the coalition against the Houthis. I think the Saudis may have, I don't know. So the Saudis can't stay neutral. They got to either hook up with America, which means hook up with Israel, or hook up with the Houthis in Iran. And they probably don't trust Iran, because Iran would love to overrun their country and grab all their oil. So we need to watch how this one shapes up. The Americans are not going to be quick to go do a land invasion of the Houthis. It's going to start with air attacks and missile attacks on strategic targets. They'll hit a bunch of targets in the beginning to try to send a warning notice to the Houthis. It'll have no effect. None. They'll just hit back harder. Then they're going to have to start doing more intensive attacks and more of them, and that'll take 2 weeks or more. And then they see the Houthis are still coming at their ships, then they're going to start getting serious, maybe. Okay? What America doesn't understand is threatening these Iran, Iraq, and Syria militias and the Houthis and Hamas and Hezbollah doesn't mean anything to them. You can't just bring aircraft carriers and destroyers over here and expect them to go away. The only thing they understand is a pounding. That's the sad truth. Netanyahu knows that, but I don't think the Biden administration has listened to him about that. It's the only thing they respect. And look at how Hamas is hanging on. Nobody's coming to help Hamas, and they're still hanging on. Because they think with international pressure, and they could be right, the nations are going to force Israel to do a permanent ceasefire, and they can remain in Gaza and rise up to kill us again another day. And that could happen. It could happen. I don't see a lot of signs of that, but it could come from the UN, and the United States may not veto it. But it's going to have to involve the return of all the hostages. And Hamas wants a get-out-of-jail-free card on those that participated in the massacre on October 7th, which includes a lot of the leaders. And that is something Israel's not going to do. So what you have here is possibly a falling away of Israel and America. Okay? That is probably at 50% right now. And America just says, well, we're not going to give you any more weapons, and, you're on your own. After they encouraged us with weapons and we opened up several fronts. Israel will run out of weapons before long, and they know that. And then it'll be a bad thing for Israel. Got it? Now, the wild card is the Houthis. They sort of kind of need Israel, or want to have Israel, for this fight against the Houthis, because Israel understands it better than they do. But 100% chance they're not going to listen to the Israeli generals, who would tell them how to do it, but they're not going to listen. They'll listen, but they won't obey. They won't do what the Israeli generals tell them to do. They'll listen to everything and then come up with their own plan. So there's a lot of juggling of pieces in the air right now. Now, Iran is very likely wanting to see the Houthis engage these coalition warships, So they will learn what the capabilities of the ships and their missiles and defense mechanisms are, and try to modify their arsenal to accommodate destruction of these ships. Because Iran is I've told you this months ago that they're going to use the Houthis to pinch off the Red Sea and cut oil and everything else, down, grain, oil, containers, everything, causing prices to advance. But then when they cut the Persian Gulf, which requires either Iraq or Iran or both to do it, it'll probably be both, because Iraq is sort of in the pocket of Iran, which makes them another puppet. But they don't have a common border with Israel, so they're not aggressively doing anything with Israel, except maybe they put some militia in Syria. The militias in Syria opposed to Bashar Assad, the ruler of Syria, have been attacking his troops. And they told him if he opens up a front line with Israel, they're going to attack him from his rear. And you better believe the Americans and the Israelis are giving a lot of support to these militias opposing Bashar Assad. So Assad's got a lot of problems. If they shut the Persian Gulf, which Iran might do using the same logic as the Houthis, well, the ships with the American coalition and all that stuff, we're not allowing in or out of here, So it's going to be tough with oil. And they won't just do the Persian Gulf. They'll attempt to do the Sea of Oman, which is right where the Persian Gulf opens into by the Kingdom of Oman, which is another dictatorship called the King, or whatever he calls himself. And you're going to cut off a massive amount of oil that way. And I would think your $75 a barrel, just based on the Houthis, is probably going to go to 90, 95 before long. Might take a few days or weeks, but it'll get up there. But if the Persian Gulf gets shut, you're going to be looking at, $125, $140, $150 a barrel. Because the Persian Gulf will be shut at the same time as the Red Sea is shut. Europe's going to suffer. The whole world. With just the Red Sea, the whole world is suffering. Remember, the Panama Canal is facing a drought in that lake they have that they use to flood the gates of the canal. So they can only pass very few ships through at a time. So their wait time is very high. It could be months. So there's all kinds of shipping problems going on in the world right now. All kinds, at the same time. So Iran may just be simply using the Houthis to test the mettle of the Navy ships in the coalition, learn, and then see if there's any feasibility in them taking over the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman. They may come to the conclusion that there is no merit in that they can't do it. They'll be defeated, then they won't. They'll go back to the drawing board and try to improve their weapons, which will take months. Or, on the other hand, they may realize that they can defeat the Navy, and then they'll do it. They don't want to see a war on their homeland, but they're in this axis of evil, which is China, North Korea, Iran, Russia, and the other forces would be Mexico, Venezuela, and Cuba, and Belarus. Can Iran win against America? Well, again, it's going to be, America's going to cause a lot of damage in Iran above the surface. and they're not going to cause much damage at all beneath the surface. Some of their vital installations are over 300 feet down, and I don't know what the heck America has that's going to do that. They apparently have some 20,000-pound bombs or something like that. They might have a handful of those or a dozen or something, and they probably will cause some damage. But remains to be seen. They may not. Because they're not just down with, plywood roofs. They've got, feet of concrete that's reinforced and steel beams to support it. It's pretty hairy to get that. If need be, Iran will take the attack on its soil, because it won't be completely fatal, because it would require, again, a land invasion in many months. And it could happen. America may try it. They may get very, very, very frustrated and say, this is the only thing left to do, and bring over an army of, they'd have to get at least 500,000, counting the coalition and their own soldiers. Now, if Iran shuts the Persian Gulf and the world's economy is getting ready to collapse, then the coalition will produce the troops. They don't have much choice. If oil goes to $200 or $300 a barrel, and grain is going up, and cargo container stuff, and they're going to have to go to war. They're going to get their economies busted out, and they're going to have insurrections in their country and everything else. By bringing the coalition in, America avoids taking all the bad publicity for doing it itself. So what you might see here is America fighting in Lebanon, America deeply fighting with the Houthis. The war against American troops in Iraq and Syria will ratchet up, and they're going to have more resources and troops inside Iraq and Syria, and then ultimately in the Persian Gulf and attacking Iran. And then you'll soon see Russia cause problems more and more in Europe, causing America and NATO to deploy troops, and Finland, which they're already doing, and Poland, which they do now, and possibly Georgia, and Denmark, Sweden, Latvia, Lithuania, and so forth, and cause a lot of problems and difficulties for America without actually doing NATO attacks. Just staging on the borders of these countries as if they're getting ready to do an attack will cause America to deploy assets. Now, this thing's moving around. I don't know how to stop it. And that's what China did to America in the Pacific region with Taiwan. They get up many days and encircle Taiwan with warships and fly into Taiwan airspace with their planes, and America keeps putting more and more, aircraft carrier groups, destroyers, and submarines and other things in the area. And China keeps doing it, but doesn't ever attack. And Japan is mobilizing as well. And now we see that I think it's South Korea and America are going to conduct some, what they refer to as nuclear exercises in the region. And the North Korean guy, the dictator there, came out and said he will consider such exercises a declaration of war. Now, this could be nothing more than an empty threat that's meaningless. And it can also be real. But in any event, it's going to scare America and put more resources over there. So what the axis of evil was facing from America was sanctions. Sanctions on Venezuela, sanctions on Cuba, which still take place to some extent, Big sanctions on China. China's economy is in the toilet. Big sanctions on Iran. Iran has a lot of economic problems, right? And big sanctions on Russia, which caused a lot of economic problems for Russia. So these countries felt compelled to have to do something. So they set a snare for America. They can't invade America, even though there's, 4 or 5 big countries. When America's at her fullest, it's too powerful. So what they did was they drew, this is the snare that we read about in Jeremiah 50:51. I think it's Jeremiah 50 verse 24. America's caught in a snare. God set the snare. So they have America drawing troops to the Pacific region big time. America has troops in Guyana because Venezuela is threatening to annex 2/3 of it. America has troops in Iraq and Syria, and in Syria, right near the oil fields, coincidentally, and which is northeast Syria, and they got troops all over Europe with the UN to protect against Russia. They have troops, 13,500 in Kuwait, which is absurd. Bahrain and Qatar would have either 2,500 to 5,000 each. UAE is at least 5,000. Saudi Arabia is probably over 5,000, as is Jordan. And they might have soldiers in Oman, but not a heavy presence, maybe 2,500. So there's, there could be 20, 25,000 soldiers sprinkled about the Middle East right now, protecting American interests, which is backing all these dictators that call themselves kings or whatever. They can't call themselves the Führer, they use terms like kings, and they treat their country as a family-owned grocery store, like a business. And the people have no hope of ever getting ahead. It's all about the royal family. Very sick. And a lot of the Muslims on the Shiite side don't like this and say it's against the Quran and want to strike these people down if they can. So the axis of evil is drawing America into a trap where their military resources are going to be expended. In other words, they're going to shoot a lot of artillery, a lot of bullets, a lot of missiles, a lot of rockets. They hope to damage a lot of their aircraft, their Navy vessels, and shoot their planes down. But with the planes, it's not so easy, but it could happen. And with the Navy ships, we don't know yet. It may happen easily, and it may not. Depends how good their anti-ship missiles are, and they'll probably try to swarm attack the ships with anti-ship missiles, and drone attacks, and of course enough artillery to overwhelm their defenses. Can they do this? I think it's logical to assume in some instances they'll be successful. And that would lead to America declaring war on Iran if they sink 2 or 3 ships. So Biden being in on this and a participant in it, which I'm sure of, look at his open border policy, there's no good reason for that. It's insane. He's against America. He wants the beast government, the 10 horns, eat the flesh of the whore and burn her. That's America, the great city, Washington, D.C. And Biden is on the side of the beast that wants to come to power with adultery. And he's using Biden, of course. Biden's serving the unclean spirits. So he's sinking the ship of America, which is the best biblical explanation for the open border policy. And it's getting worse and worse by the day. The cows left the barn already, guys. If they shut the border this morning, it's still too late. It would take them years to round up hundreds of thousands of illegals, of draft age males. And, you know, it's over. You know, you've got to understand that. And most people don't, and they run away from me when I tell them that. But that's what the reality is. Now, they may not draw America into Hezbollah with a ground invasion. They may be content to just keep a lot of NATO assets down there and, you know, keep going tit for tat. They shoot missiles, they get bombed, which is what Israel's normal modus operandi was until October 7th. So, the idea is to have American military spread out all over the world, leave America undefended. Now the sleeper agents come in and start causing all kinds of havoc in America. What some of the things they're going to do is start fires. The survivalists, the preppers, the gun people are not prepared to carry out to defend with fire. How many? Now, you'll see some, they have 25 guns in their house, 30, 40 guns. And they got, you know, 15, 25, 30,000 rounds of ammo. They got bulletproof vests, they have gas masks, they have hazmat suits, they got food, they got shortwave radios, they got water supplies, water filters, everything. But what don't they have? They don't have fire extinguishers. And we saw how they operated October 7th in Israel. Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, ISIS, all the same thing. They tried to get in some of the houses and they couldn't get in. People had bars on the windows and metal doors. So they burned the house down with the people in it. We found their bodies. People went into bomb shelters, which are like safe rooms. They're made out of thick, like this, reinforced concrete. They got metal doors, like half-inch steel, and half-inch steel windows. And in many cases, they couldn't get in. And it's usually under the house or attached to the house on the side on the lowest level. They burned the house, and the heat and the smoke of the burning house killed them. In some cases, they actually managed to get in, and then they shot them and killed them. So they used fire a lot. They used incendiary balloons against Israel, maybe 15 or 20 helium balloons with a little basket. The basket has a small container, maybe 16, 32 ounces of a very highly combustible liquid. And they put a fuse on it. They watch the wind. They watch it from Gaza. The wind comes into Israel. The fuse burns down. Or they use an electric timer. The fuse will burn down, ignite the inflammatory liquids, which will burn the balloons. The thing comes crashing down, and it's burning, and it starts fires. They burned many, many, many thousands and thousands of acres of agricultural land we have down there. What's to stop them from doing that in America? Not a darn thing. You could do it at night off your rooftop and get away with it endlessly. They also know how to make missile launchers and missiles out of hardware store type goods. Yep. And all they got to do is take the missile launcher. It can have 6 or 8 rockets in it, put it in a truck, open the roof of the truck, drive someplace where it's discreet, launch the missiles, drive away. 8 or 10 missiles blow up a city. They can shoot it into the city from the city. The idea is they're terrorists and they're going to try to create terror. And that'll do it. Will they organize people to go around house to house in neighborhoods? That'll evolve on its own. People will want to get weapons, ammo, bulletproof vests, water, food, money, jewelry. They'll organize with or without these Muslim protesters and march into neighborhoods to get these things. and they'll break into houses, and the people in the houses have a lot of guns, and they really, really, truly know how to use the guns. And they got better guns than the Hamas and Hezbollah and those guys are going to have. They're going to have basic AK-47s and some pistols, mostly AKs. They'll be full auto. They'll have plenty of ammo, like 200 rounds. And they'll come to the house and you'll start shooting them, and they'll back off and they'll start spraying the house with hundreds of bullets, and they'll kill and wound many of the people in the houses, because the houses in America are mostly made out of sheetrock crop, and they'll get the people inside. Now there's some houses that are cinder block and brick, and the bullets are going to chip away and bounce off of that. So they'll use Molotov cocktails. Very easy to build. They'll use a glass bottle with a fuse made out of a shirt or paper towels or something soaked in gasoline or whatever. They'll light it and throw it on the house. They put sticky stuff in there to make it stick on the house, and they'll throw it through the windows. And the houses will burn. And the people have to make a decision, what are they going to do? Now, if the preppers went out and bought a half a dozen good-sized fire extinguishers like this and like this, they could probably put out these fires and hope the crowd moves along, because they could keep shooting at the crowd. And the house will have a little bit of fire damage, but it's not going to burn. They're not going to get burned out. The idea from what they did in Israel October 7th is to get the people to evacuate the house and then kill or capture them. Or if they stay in the house, they burn to death. There's nobody to speak of in America that have bomb shelters in their house. There's some rich people that have safe rooms in their house, but I do not think any of these safe rooms are going to survive a house fire, because they're usually attached to the house. Now, if the safe room is downstairs and it's, even as little as 12, 15 feet under the house, they may survive. If it's 30, 40 feet under the house, they're going to survive. There's a very small amount of wealthy people that'll have tunnels. They can go under their house, and maybe they go 100 feet into a barn or another building and get out, and then they can run away. But, you can count the amount of, maybe there's 100 or 200 people in the whole country that have that. If they have air tanks in the safe room, and they could block out the gases and the flames and the fumes from the fire for a period of time, like an hour and a half, 2.5 hours, something like that, they probably could live through the fire. Again, you maybe got 200-300 people in the whole country, or maybe 1,000 people that have a setup like that. So it's an insignificant amount of people out of 340-something million. And it says in Jeremiah 50:51, the destruction of the daughter of Babylon, the Lord will kindle fires in and around her cities, and they're going to get burned up. Now, you have incendiary balloons, and then you have these Chinese with these big balloons that were causing fires, and they say, how true it is, I don't know yet, but I think it could be true. They have lasers in there that can cause fires. And they float these balloons in a remote controlled, and they just cause fires. And they could launch thousands of these, and that's probably where the fires are going to come from. They also had incendiary grenades that Hamas had, little things like, you pull a pin, throw it through a window, and it kind of moderately explodes and causes an incendiary reaction of fire. Now, if you're the kind of homeowner that has hurricane-proofed your house, you have a hurricane-proof door, hurricane-proof windows, hurricane-proof garage door. Now, to make a hurricane-proof window, they fling a board, like a 2x4, maybe 2 feet long or something, into the window at a speed of 130 miles an hour. And these things sustain it. So does that mean they're not going to be able to break through that? No. Because if they come with hammers and just keep throwing rocks, it's going to break after, if you have a small sledge and you hit it 10 or 12 times, which takes a few seconds, it's probably going to break. But if they throw Molotovs and grenades at it and stuff like that, it's probably just going to bounce off. But then the fire is going to be burning 1 or 2 feet away from your window, and that's a very bad thing too. That'll work. Probably get the house on fire. They also will shoot these windows with the AKs, and they probably will penetrate and cause a problem. So if they're using fire, they don't have to worry completely, overwhelmingly about the attacks. Well, about they're going to win. Basically, that's what I'm saying. They're going to win. Now, they've been attacking the grids. China, Russia, Iran, and they could attack small cities in America by knocking the grid out. And then just deploying their assets that are already in the United States, that are these illegals are 70% military age males, when the normal figure would be 15 or 20%, I figure. So they could just decide they want to hit Tuscaloosa or small cities, maybe up to 100,000 or 150,000. The chances of the police and the sheriff over there and the state police all having good generators to handle things in the event of a blackout are pretty small, but very possible. But usually by a police station, you have a big tower that they use to transmit their radio communication with the cars. And it's child's play for them to knock the tower down, just use a shoulder-fired weapon, and that's it. Now, what's that do? Well, now the police can't get dispatched. So, will the police cell phones work? Well, only if the cell towers work. But if they do a cyber attack, cell towers are down, so the phones will have a charge. They can play games on their phones and watch movies they downloaded, but they're not going to be able to communicate with each other because there's no towers. So they're out of business. You call the police, nobody's coming. The police aren't going to be able to communicate with each other. What are they going to do? They'll try to use landline phones. They might be successful with that. Probably not. And then they're going to go back to the station for orders. They have no solution. And what they're going to do is basically hide. Police are mercenaries. They believe in the overwhelming forces, or they run away, or they hide. Most of them don't live in the community. They're not ninjas. 2% maybe. They're going to hide. They're going to get killed too. I'll be right back. Now, the FBI has been warning people about this for many weeks. Biden still will not close the border. So now you tell me why you think Biden's not in on it. Bible prophecy says the 10 horns from the beast are going to burn her, which Jeremiah 50:51, I'm talking Revelation 17. Jeremiah 50:51 says, the Lord's going to kindle fires in and about her cities, and it explains they're going to get burned. Now, the invasion of the sleeper agents that came in through the border is just the beginning, and that's going to cause the America to break up. It says ruler fighting ruler will happen in the daughter of Babylon. And ruler fighting ruler means these are rulers against each other. So that means civil war. It doesn't mean some fanatic group is going to go protest and break stores and loot them. That's not ruler fighting ruler. That's disturbances, civil unrest. That you'll have plenty of. You got it already. They're shutting down airports, train stations, past tense in the last few weeks. Pro-Palestinian. Okay? That you've already got. It's going to get worse, of course. You already got that. Ruler fighting ruler would really be succession. States, cities or counties seceding from the United States, which Biden won't know what to do about. He'll be against it. What's he going to do? Start invading American counties and states? This isn't going to happen until the sleeper agents break out. And they're going to try to say, well, let's drop out of the United States and maybe make peace with them and they'll leave us alone. Wrong. It's never going to happen. No, it's God's vengeance. This, I believe, is a lot to do with the day of vengeance. And God's doing this. He's arranging it. This is the snare. So the military will already be deployed extensively around the world. Whatever little military the United States has left, they're going to need to protect their borders and manage the wars around the world. The smartest thing for America to do would be to get rid of Biden and bring all the troops home all over the world and just set up strong borders in America, and then it would be over. Okay, but there would be no attack on America, but Biden's not going to do that. He's in on it. So the troops inside America aren't going to be able to go around and rescue communities. They're going to be worried about the borders. And there's going to be all sorts of division inside the country. And people are going to be opposed. Texas is probably going to be one of the first to leave. Now, they're not going to go through the motions of next year holding a referendum and then voting in the state legislature, seeing if the governor signs it, then submit it to the federal government, see if they approve it. And if they don't, take it to the courts and protest it. They're not going to do that. They're just going to declare it. The governor and the legislature will have a vote on it, and they're just going to tell the United States, we've evoked our states' rights and we're out of your union. And Biden will say what Abraham Lincoln said. He said, no, you're not. And they'll fight over it. And that'll weaken the American military even more. How many American soldiers are really going to invade another state or city or county in America? Not many. They'll beat the patriotism drum. This is going to destroy us in our urgent times of need and crisis. They can't do this. And they're enemies of America. They're working with Hamas. And that's not going to work. All the soldiers have friends, family, relatives all around the United States. They're not going to do that. They'll stay on duty and, stuff like that. But it's going to be a mess. And the real trick would be to get America to disband its arsenal of artillery, bullets, missiles, rockets, anti-missile missiles, aircraft, naval vessels, to get them destroyed so there's not much of those left back in them in America. And that's your Bible. That's what it says. That's what's going to happen. And now we're going to show you how the biblical timing of this is and how close we really are. But let me look at the chat first and see if we got any questions. No, a lot of people hate this. I lost on Telegram about 12 people as I started putting this stuff up about America and the snare. And what you're dealing with there is people that just can't face the truth, very simply put. They just can't face it, that's all. They don't understand that their country is being run by despots, and they believe the Hollywood and the music industry is run by despots, but they won't believe the government is. And Trump's just another one of them, and Trump can't do anything. He's not holding office. And the election's not until, 10 months from now, 11 months from now, roughly. And then another 2 months after that to take over. So it's a year away. There's no prophetic time for that. We're in the year of recompenses, which started on or around August 1st. We're going into the middle of the year, January 1st, in a few days, I would say. Now, it's possible, I'm not saying for sure, because I don't know. I do not know. We may go into the redemption portion of this thing for the next 6 months, but the Lord has never specifically told me or showed me that. I'm just guessing it's a possibility, but I don't know. Pray about it. That's the best thing to do. Pray He show me. But He hasn't, and I don't see any evidence of it. I'm just taking a wild guess, no more than that. If not, the recompenses may continue. Now, we had a guy, some Muslim guy, was cursing Israel on TV. Remember that about a week ago? And he had a heart attack right on the stage, and then he died from the heart attack. We went to the hospital and died. We had another incident a couple of days ago where some guy was saying bad things about Israel, a Muslim guy, and then he said, if I'm lying, may the floor come out from under my feet, and then it happened. He fell into the floor. He tripped and fell into the floor. Now, what is the Lord showing you with these two things? He's showing you that we are in the year of recompenses, which means there's a payback for what they do. When Israel was in their 2,000-year punishment, which you could read about in Hosea 6:1 and 2, which I believe is either over or just about over. It's not really over till we hit redemption, but it's really coming to an end. And what I'm seeing is the enemies of Israel. What he said, He turned us over to our enemies, but that stopped. Now there's a recompense. The enemies are paying a bad price for it. Look at what happened in Gaza. They say, I don't know if the figures are inflated, they say probably are, that 20,000 dead and 50,000 wounded. That's pretty serious. And I'll tell you, I've seen the pictures of Gaza. All the rich, nice, plush Park Avenue neighborhoods are devastated trash heaps. That's where the Hamas characters were living. And my guess is a good 85% of all the buildings and residences are either gone, destroyed or damaged. So I don't know how they're going to return to live in Gaza. This is a mystery to the Western world or the Eastern world or the Middle East, and I don't know any solution to this. Biden may try to put 2 million or 2.5 million of these people in the West Bank. There's going to be a falling out between America and Israel. When you read Jeremiah 50:51, you read America does very bad things to Israel. And they've already started. It might simply be they leave us in the lurch while we've got 3 or 4 fronts open until we run out of missiles, then it's over for us. The sooner America breaks from Israel, the closer we are to the redemption at the end of Zechariah 12. So don't think that's a bad thing. When you see America turn against Israel, rejoice. I'm serious. All things work to good for those who love the Lord. That's when you rejoice. That's when you're happy and you celebrate when you see that. Because America, getting Israel to listen to it is the biggest problem we have right now. It is. Okay? It is. Now, let's go to Ezekiel 34, because I talk about that a lot, but I don't teach about it as much as I should. The Lord showed me to do that today, so we're going to do that. Now, this is a very little used prophecy, because the churches don't want you to understand what's really going to happen. Here we go, verse 1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, so this is the word of the Lord, is without error, and it has to come to pass. Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy and say unto them, thus saith Adonai Jehovah unto the shepherds, woe be to the shepherds of Israel that do feed themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flocks? Now let's look at the word feed. 1961, Strong's number Haya. This doesn't mean feed. Uh-oh. Let's see what Strong says about this. Exist. Come to pass. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, there's the second word. Okay, let's read the second word. Ra. Pasture, feed. I see what they're saying. Could also mean to rule. Devour, eat up, or feed, or rule. Okay, what? Let's look up the word shepherds. I think I just did that. To graze or feed. Should not the shepherds, same word, feed the flocks? Okay, the shepherds of Israel, you need to understand, are definitely the rabbis. They're definitely the ones leading the Messianic congregations, of which is 85 of them in Israel, or 80-something. And they're all rotten, just like the churches, every last one of them, I believe. I don't know of any good ones. They would just infiltrate it and split it up and drive it into sin, so I don't believe there are any good ones. And the government of Israel, because they take the role of the shepherd, they provide the protection for Israel. They run the courts in Israel, and the courts are a disgusting disgrace, believe me. And I really, after living here, know why the 2/3 of Israel are going to get cut off very shortly, because they're so evil and wicked to their fellow countrymen. It's disgusting, really and truly. The government provides the welfare system for Israel. The government runs the healthcare system for Israel. And I can keep going. The government is working as the shepherds. The rabbis do very little. Okay? They do marriages, funerals, kosher the food, and suck money out of the government and teach incorrect doctrines from the Talmud even, not even from the Bible, to the people. So in a sense, they're shepherds too. So I would have to include both of them. Verse 3. You eat the fat and you clothe you with wool. You kill them that are fed, but you feed not the flock. That's what they do. I mean, this schmuck Netanyahu bought 75 F-35s at $100 million a throw without the cost of the retrofitting, which is probably a few million. And 28% of the people in Israel live at the poverty line. You know that the food prices in Gaza are 20% of what they are in Israel? I assume the rabbis with their kosher charges put 15% on the food. Maybe they put 30% on the food. I don't know anymore. I know the supermarket owners, of which there's several supermarket chains here that have over 50 or 60 outlets, they're evil and rotten. They're crooked as a dog's hind leg. They keep the prices as high as they possibly can. All the retailers, these chains, keep the prices as high as they can to bleed the people. This stops Aliyah. It stops Jews from wanting to come to Israel. It's been going on for decades. What do I want to go to Israel for? You know, they have joke sayings. They say, you know how to make a small fortune in Israel? No, how? Bring a large fortune with you. Yeah. They discriminate against the people that aren't native born here, even though they're Jews that moved here. They could be here 20, 30 years. They still discriminate against you. They don't trust you. They don't want you in their inner circle. All the stuff the Bible and the Torah and the Talmud and the New Testament tells you not to do, they do. And they will be cut off. This is Israel. It's not Argentina or Japan. This is Israel. They will get cut off, and very, very soon. You'll be reading that in a moment. The disease have you not strengthened? The healthcare system here is, I would say, atrocious. Okay? I know people that have gotten hip replacements here, they still can't walk right, they're taking pain meds, medical marijuana, all sorts of garbage. It's not anything you'd want to experience. Now, you know, if you got shot with a bullet, they're probably pretty good at fixing that. They got a lot of experience, but the healthcare system here is not a good one at all. The wealthy people don't use the public health care system, although it's mandatory to contribute to it. It's illegal not to. They don't do it. They don't do it. They've gone to a private healthcare system, which is pretty good, I understand, and it's expensive. Neither have you healed that which was sick. Of course, it's talking about spiritual healing through God also. Neither have you bound up that which was broken. Neither have you brought again that which was driven away. That's the people of Israel. They don't want to bring them back. They did in 1990. They took 1 million Russians in. But then Netanyahu started coming to office with his 20 years, and he's completely anti-Aliyah. He not only doesn't want Jews coming here, he wants the Jews here leaving. And the housing prices are so impossible here. A lot of the young Jewish people moved to other countries because they could never afford to own a house, and the landlords are sick here. Most of the good Jews won't be a landlord. The laws are completely crooked. The courts are not right in Israel. And the landlords take gross advantage of the people, and they have the people pay the property taxes and everything else. It's sick. You have no idea how sick it is. I'm not going to sit here and cry. I'm trying to teach Bible. That which was broken, neither have you bound up. That which was driven away, neither have you sought. That which was lost, but with force and with cruelty have you ruled them. Yep, Israel is got debtor's prison. If somebody owes you money in Israel, you could very easily and quickly have the government collect the money for you, like suck it out of their bank account. I mean, it is just a rotten country. The government is straight out of the pit, Satan. Because that's who they are. That's who the government is. And they were scattered because there is no shepherd. They were scattered because there is no shepherd. And they became meat to all they were scattered, means not in Israel, and they became meat to all the beasts of the field when they were scattered. Now, the beasts of the field is chai, which is beast or animal of the field. What's the word field mean? Of the land. I guess it means wild beast. My sheep wandered through all the mountains and upon every high hill. Yea, my flock was scattered upon all the face of the earth. That's the diaspora. And none did search or seek after them. And Israel doesn't do that. They don't go try to find them. Come on, live in Israel. We'll help you. You know, they don't do that. They used to do that a tiny bit, but it looked better than it really was. Wherefore, you shepherds, hear the word of Jehovah. That's the government, the rabbis, Messianic congregations, and stuff. As I live, saith Adonai Jehovah, surely because my flock became a prey, and my flock became meat to every beast of the field, because there was no shepherd, neither did my shepherds search for my flock. What does Netanyahu have 3 criminal cases for? Corruption. But the shepherds fed themselves and fed not my flock. Now the rabbis suck us dry on the food with the kosher stuff, and the government taxes us like crazy, which money they do what they want with. $3 a gallon tax on gasoline. You pay less than just our tax on gasoline. It's over $8 a gallon for diesel now. It's impossible to live here, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. It's very, very hard. The shepherds fed themselves. Look at the retailers, what they do. There's price fixing in Israel with these big companies, and the government doesn't care because they're getting political donations. They don't care. They let them do what they want. That's why there's so many people in Israel that want to vote for Netanyahu. They want to use the corruption. They call it protexia, so they could get better treatment than the other people in Israel through a lying, cheating, conniving, corrupt government. That's why they're going to be cut off. They're not long for this world, believe me. I'd be shocked if they made it to August 1st, 2024. Shocked. They might, but that'd be about the limit. Therefore, O you shepherds, hear the word of Jehovah. Thus saith Adonai Jehovah, behold, I am against the shepherds, and I will require my flock at their hand. What does the word require mean? To seek. Basically, you could say seek or get the flock and get it out of their hand and cause them to cease from feeding the flock. Neither shall the shepherds feed themselves anymore, for I will deliver my flock from the mouth that they may not be meat for them. You understand? These are the 1/3, the humble, poor people. For thus saith Adonai Jehovah, behold, I, even I, will both search my sheep and see them out, and seek them out. As the shepherds seek out his flock in the day that he is among his sheep that are scattered, so will I seek out my sheep and will deliver them out of the places where they have been scattered in the cloudy and dark day. That's your second Exodus from the diaspora, from the captivity. Remember that. And I will bring them out from the people and gather them from the countries and will bring them to their own land and feed them upon the mountains of Israel, by the rivers, and in all the inhabited places of the country. So, inhabited places of the country. So, don't be looking for, 25,000 missiles and rockets to come into Israel and devastate the country and destroy it. I don't see that in prophecy at all. Learn. Think the way I think. I'm teaching. I will feed them in a good pasture, and upon the high mountains of Israel shall their fold be. There shall they lie in a good fold, and in a fat pasture shall they feed upon the mountains of Israel. So we're going to have plenty of food and money. The money will be gold and silver. It says that in the Bible. Hard currency, not paper money. Verse 15. I will feed my flock, and I will cause them to lie down, saith Adonai Yehovah. Well, lie down. Rest. You're out in the woods, out in the field. Nothing's going to bother you. No animals, no snakes, no scorpions, no bombs, bullets, nothing. No rotten government. You just lay down and take a rest. I will seek that which was lost tribes, and bring again that which was driven away, and will bind up that which was broken, and will strengthen that which was sick. But I will destroy the fat and the strong. I will feed them with judgment. Now the word bind up is actually found in Hosea 6, 1 and 2. And there's a lot of people that are broken here. I will destroy the fat and the strong. Those are the rich. Those are the government. Those are the ones serving the unclean spirits. They're gone. I will feed them with judgment. You know what that judgment's going to be. And as for you, O my flock, saith Adonai Yehovah, behold, I judge between cattle and cattle, between the rams and the he-goats. Seemeth it a small thing unto you to have eaten up the good pasture, but you must tread down with your feet the residue of your pasture, and to have drunk of the deep waters, but you must foul the residue with your feet. The crappiest fruit and vegetables in Israel wind up in our supermarkets. I'm not kidding you. We get charity handout fruit and vegetables. And what these are is they're what the supermarket doesn't buy. And those are the good ones. And we get them for free. It's a handout. And why don't they buy them? Because they want to sell the cheap crap to the Israelis. I'm serious. I'm dead serious. There's not enough demand for it. Some of the rich stores, like in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Netanya, Herzliya, they'll buy that stuff because they got wealthy S-spots living there. But the other stores, just the people buy the cheapest crap. They're used to eating crap. Well, this is Israel. We eat crap. The meat is terrible. The rabbis do this phony kosher thing on there where they wash the meat, salt it, wash it, and salt it again, and it ruins the meat. It makes it tough, and it makes it taste bad. And you get a lot of bad salt. I don't use Himalayan salt. You get a lot of the kind of salt you shouldn't eat in there. The kind of salt that's excellent if you live in New York and you want to salt your driveway from ice in the winter, that's the kind of salt you should use. That's what they kosher it with. Pieces are pretty big and chunky. Not as big as what they use on sleep, but big enough. And to have drunk of the deep waters, but you must foul the residue with your feet. And as for my flock, they eat that which you have trodden with your feet. In other words, the garbage. And they drink that which you have fouled with your feet. That's Israel. That's the food supply in Israel. It's just crap. You know, they got at least 50 kinds of breads in the big supermarkets in Israel. I think that many. And there's maybe 2 or 3 that I think I actually enjoy. Most of it's just junk. Most of the food here is just garbage. Therefore, thus saith, you know what I find? This is a big supermarket chain. I ordered magnesium from there, right? So the magnesium comes, and in the bottle, nowhere on the bottle does it tell you how many milligrams of magnesium is in there. It says magnesium citrate, and it doesn't. So they've actually started selling supplements to people that don't give how many milligrams of the supplement are in there. Now, that shouldn't be allowed by a government, but it is, because the government's corrupt. We see so much of this in Israel, so much of it. Many supplements, and so you got to get the supplements from overseas, from Amazon or some other place. And then you got to pay some shipping, and it takes time. But at least they'll give you a label you can read and see what the heck you're getting. Therefore, thus saith Adonai Yehovah unto them, Behold, I will judge between the fat cattle and between the lean cattle. The lean cattle are the poor working people, the expats that own the businesses, the big jobs, the government stuff, get government contracts, and they're going to be gone. Those are the 2/3, because how they treat their fellow Israelis. This is what the law was all about. This is what the Lord crashed on them for. It was because of the way they treated each other, how they took advantage of each other, the stranger, the widow, the orphan, the poor. That's what it was about. That's what the judgment came on. He said, I don't care about your offerings and all that. Look, what they were doing is going around and giving the offerings, observing the Shabbat, and then, exploiting and ripping off each other. And that's what they do today. Oh, the rich ones go to the synagogue. They'll tell you how kosher they are and all that stuff, right? And they'll be dastardly evil to the other Israelis because they're serving the gods of the dead. And the gods of the dead hate Israel, because when Israel rises up, they're in the pit. So they want to stop it. So they turn these people against the poor and innocent. It's horrible living here. Because you have thrust with side and with shoulder, and pushed all the disease with your horns, till you have scattered them abroad. Yeah. They come to Israel. I know lots of stories. People come to Israel and leave. All the time you see this. It's just, for some of them, it's impossible to live here, and they're impossible. It's so ridiculous. I lived here at first for 3 years, and then I left. It took 25 years to come back. I didn't want to come back. The Lord was telling me to come back. I had some very, very bad experiences, and then I came back. Therefore will I save the flock. I delayed my coming back, and I got punished for it. Because I knew what I was in for coming back here. And it was... Therefore will I save my flock, and they shall no more be a prey. And I will judge between cattle and cattle. And that's the people. That's not just the shepherds. Take advantage of the stranger, the widow, the orphans, withhold the wages of the workers, screw the wages, cheat the employees, take advantage of the people, corrupt the court system, give them bribes and dump on people, all of this stuff. And I will set up one shepherd over them, and he shall feed them, even my servant David. He shall feed them, and he shall be their shepherd. And the Lord will be their God, and my servant David a prince among them. I, Jehovah, have spoken. Now, David shall never lack a man to sit on the throne. In Ezekiel 43, which comes right after the end of the great day of the Lord, we see the anointed prince a lot from the line of David doing sacrifices and offerings in the temple. It's in Ezekiel 43, 45. It's there. Just read it. The next temple. And after the tribulation is over and Yeshua returns, then he takes this role as the king of Israel from the line of David. It's not literally David. And I will make with them a covenant of peace. And then Yeshua was the peace offering. That's the lamb. The steer was the sin offering. But of course, his work when he died covered up the sins, because you're not going to have peace with God with the sins. And will cause the evil beasts to cease out of the land, and they shall dwell safely in the wilderness and sleep in the woods. Because nothing's going to be there to harm you. No animal, no beast, nothing. And I will make them and the places round about my hill, that's Mount Zion in Jerusalem, a blessing, and I will cause the shower to come down in his season. There shall be showers of blessings. And we get a double portion, which is going to be great rewards. And the tree of the field shall yield her fruit, and the earth shall yield her increase. And they shall be safe in their land, and shall know that I am Jehovah when I have broken the bands of their yoke. Now there's two yokes. One is from the internal government, the people in Israel running the show and the businesses, and the other yoke is the foreign countries. The UN, Biden, all that. And delivered them out of the hand of those that served themselves of them. Those are like Biden, you could say the guys that own the supermarkets, the stores, the businesses in Israel that bleed us dry and all that. And they shall no more be a prey to the heathen, neither shall the beasts of the land devour them, but they shall dwell safely, and none shall make them afraid. And I will raise up for them a plant of renown, and they shall be no more consumed with hunger in the land, neither bear the shame of the heathen anymore. The word is the goyim. That's what the church calls Gentiles. It means those without God. The church made that word up, the Gentile word. Thus shall they know that I, Jehovah Elohim, am with them, and that they, even the house of Israel, are my people, saith Adonai Jehovah. And you, my flock, the flock of my pasture, are men, and I am your God, saith Adonai Jehovah. So what this tells you is when he destroys the rich, fat despots and government of Israel, then the second Exodus is going to be very, very close. And he destroys them before Zechariah 12, where they lay siege to Judah and Jerusalem by surrounding it. And the two witnesses burn them up on the right hand and the left hand. That's going to happen. When that happens, which in my book, in my logical dumb brain, it seems like it's overdue, but it could be in any time now. The government is gone. There's no sign of the IDF, no sign of the government there at all. It's just the two judges, the two witnesses running the country. And King James calls them governors. It really should be chiefs, which is judges. And Isaiah 1 says he's going to run Israel like he did at the first with the judges, which were Moses and Aaron. They were both prophets, they were both judges, and it's going to be that way again. The Elijah witness and the Apostle John witness, and they're going to be prophets as per Revelation 11, and judges as per Isaiah 1. And they're the ones that burn up the enemy on the right hand and the left hand in Zechariah 12, chapter 10, which is the two witnesses starting to work. In the Bible, we see them beginning to work miraculously. Now, they may get rid of the 2/3. I don't know how they're going to tell which ones are the 2/3 and which ones aren't. I do not believe there's going to be a big invasion of Israel and the Espots are going to get killed. This is a work that Jehovah has to do, I believe. Now, he may illuminate to the two witnesses who they are, and then go after them. Now, you also have to be prepared for, in the second Exodus, which we'll cover in Ezekiel 20, starting in 33, briefly. And I want to look at the chat first and see if we need anything to do anything in there. Let me check the chat a little better. Okay, we'll go into, whoops, wrong place. I opened Telegram. Okay, Ezekiel 20, verse 33. As I live, saith Adonai Jehovah, surely. Now, read this carefully and you deal with this significantly, okay? With a mighty hand and with stretched out arm and with fury poured out, will I rule over you. Now, this is redemption, and is he doing the fury and everything else against Israel? It doesn't impress me to be that way. Moloch, that's like to be a king. So they say, rule over you. The word is Moloch, which is king. So what he's really saying, will I rule, those words aren't in there. Poured out, Moloch, and the word over, al, upon, or on you, or above you. How does Strong's treat the use of the word here? Over is probably the best. So it's with fury, and the word for fury is chama. And fury is a way to translate it, I suppose. It can mean heat, anger. So we could say fury, I guess. Poured out, shafak. Pour out is pretty okay. Pour out. So with fury poured out, Moloch al, over. So he's saying, will I rule? He's saying be king over. The word you is added in. All right, but it could mean he's mad at Israel too. But let's keep reading. And I will bring you out from the people, and will gather you out of the countries wherein ye are scattered. So he's going to get the people out of the captivity countries with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with fury poured out. Is he really mad at them because they don't want to come here? I'm not getting that. I'm getting that he's more mad at the countries who may not want them to go out. But, you know, it's mentioned twice. It can mean both. Once for the people and once for the countries. We have to see how this develops. But he's very mad at somebody. But he says with a stretched out arm, he's saying, come, let me help you. With a mighty hand. And it's, what do you have a stretched out arm for? Someone's hanging on the side of a cliff. Here, give me a hand. Let me help you. Or you grab their forearm and pull them up. That's a stretched out arm type thing, right? And with fury poured out against who? Against the people. So he has a stretched out arm and fury. It could be. It's very hard to really understand exactly who this is directed at. And it could be both. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there will I plead with you face to face. Wilderness of the people, the word for people is which is not, doesn't designate Israel. It means the foreign nations. I don't know where the wilderness is yet. And there will I plead with you. Pray that the Lord shows us where it is. It could mean the wilderness word is midbar or medbar. It means a wilderness. Open field, but it'll be outside of Israel someplace, yeah. Bring the wilderness of the people, that would mean outside Israel. And there will I plead with you face to face. Now the word for plead is 8199, shafat, and it means to, let's go with Strong's interpretation for this. And it says to judge. And that's what I would go with. He says, I'll judge you face to face. Like, remember that, he's going to judge. Like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness, he judged them too. A lot of them died in the wilderness. In the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so will I plead, judge, we should say. So will I judge with you, saith Adonai Yehovah. Judge, the word with shouldn't really mean, it's at, could mean with. By, at, among. So he's judging them, okay? And say to the land of, wait. Oh, this thing changed chapters on me. I don't know why it did that. Oh, I gotta find where I was. Okay. I was in verse 36. So will I plead with you, saith Adonai Yehovah, and I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. This happens in the wilderness. Pass under the rod is the shepherd would hold the rod by the sheep gate, and the sheep would go in, and he'd look at all of them, and if he saw a goat or some sheep that he didn't know from, I mean, well, he wouldn't do, but if he saw a goat or he saw a wolf or a coyote or something like that trying to get in, he wouldn't get in, he'd kill it or try to kill it. And I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. Bringing them into the bond of the covenant is the sheep gate, and Yeshua is the gate to the sheep pen. Got it? It's a good one, right? And I will purge out from among you the rebels and them that transgress against me, and I will bring them forth out of the country where they sojourn, and they shall not enter into the land of Israel, and you shall know that I am Jehovah. He's going to judge them in the wilderness, just like what happened with Moses and Aaron, and many of them got killed. The liars, adulterers, thieves, those that are contrary to God, contrary to God's ways, contrary to the law, all this stuff, trying to call on the unclean spirits, and they're going to be cut off in the wilderness. But he's going to take all the Israelites out of the captivity for his name's sake. Some of them may not want to go, and that's the few report out. They go in the wilderness, and they're going to die in the wilderness and get buried in the dirt. As for you, O house of Israel, thus saith Adonai Jehovah, go you, serve you every one his idols, and hereafter also, if you will not hearken unto me, but pollute you my holy name no more, with your gifts and with your idols. The gifts is going to the altar and, sacrificing animals while you're going around ripping people off, robbing them, corrupting the judges, and suing them and stuff like that. For in my holy mountain, in the mountain of the height of Israel, saith Jehovah, Adonai Jehovah, there shall all the house of Israel, all of them in the land, serve me. In the land. In the land. And in the land, it says, there will I accept them. That's where he accepts you. So now tell me why all these pastors are teaching crap all over the world. Because he accepts them in the land. That's why. And in Malachi 2, he says, the people shall seek the Lord at the mouth of the Kohanim, the descendants of Aaron. And God won't accept them until they're in the land. And that's why you see all this false doctrines flying around the world. But people hate it when I talk like that. But it'd be bad for me to not talk like that. Yes, I'm a Cohen. And descendant of Aaron. And there will I require your offerings and the first fruits of your oblations with all your holy things. That's the law. And I will accept you with your sweet Savior, that's the offerings, when I bring you out from the people and gather you out of the countries wherein you have been scattered, and I will be sanctified in you before the heathen. How about that? All happens in Israel. The word of the Lord does not go forth from the nations to Israel. It's the church that feeds you that crap. It's the other way around. And you shall know that I am Jehovah when I shall bring you into the land of Israel, into the country for the which I lifted up my hand to give it to your fathers. And there shall you remember your ways and all your doings wherein you have been defiled. And you shall loathe yourselves in your own sight for all your evil that you have committed. This is the mourning in Zechariah 12, after they look upon Yeshua, the one whom they pierced, and they mourn for him. That's what this is. And you shall know that I am Jehovah when I have wrought with you for my name's sake, not according to your wicked ways, nor according to your corrupt doing, O you house of Israel, saith Adonai Jehovah. You see, Lord snaps them out of this. He pours his spirit out on them in Zechariah 12, just before they look on Yeshua, so they're believers when they see him and they get eternal life. And that's what he does. And the church is so far away from the truth, it's not even funny. Moreover, the word of Jehovah came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face towards the south. Now, the word for south is Teman. Teman is what they used to refer to as Yemen. Ooh, and drop my word towards the south. Teman, Yemen. No, wait a minute. What's this word here? Oh. This is a different word. Towards the south, to Rome. That means south. And prophesy against the forest of the south field. And say to the forest of the south, hear the word of Jehovah. Thus saith Adonai Jehovah, behold, I will kindle a fire in thee, and it shall devour every green tree in thee, and every dry tree. The flaming flame shall not be quenched, and all faces from the south to the north shall be burned therein. I believe that's maybe talking about going all the way up to Edom, which is in Saudi Arabia, I'm not sure. And all flesh shall see that. This is Yemen he's talking about. Duh, come on, it's exciting. I, Jehovah, have kindled it. It shall not be quenched. Oof. Then said I, Lord God, they say of me, doth he not speak in parables? Well, okay. How's them apples? Good one, huh? So when you see the government and the rabbis get the cut off from above ground, then you know that we're getting close to the second Exodus, which is going to come after Zechariah 12. But by the time you get to Zechariah 12, the government's gone. I think when you get to Malachi 3, where Elijah's teaching the people, the Levites, how to do the offerings, so the offerings are acceptable to the Lord, and it says, who can stand and all that. I think Elijah gets rid of them. They probably try to get rid of Elijah, and he gets rid of them. And that's the way the cookie crumbles with the wicked. They don't get what they want. They're mean, they're evil, they're rotten, they're liars, they're despicable people, but they don't get what they want. Not in these days. Satan's 2,000 years where the Lord turned Israel over to their enemies is drying up. It's just about over. Now they get paid back for what they're doing, and then eventually they're going to be destroyed. And probably in the next 6 months or so, they'll be greatly destroyed. Now, you also have to remember that the book of Jeremiah talks about the destruction of all the nations that he dispersed the Israelites into. For I am with thee, saith the Lord, to save thee. Though I make a full end of all nations whither I have scattered thee, yet will I not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. And this has got to be 100, 125, 140 nations that he scattered Israel into. So when they talk about a world war, they're not kidding. And it's coming. And I imagine it'll be here in the next, at the latest, it should all be over in the next 6 months or so. Over, not starting. Over, finished. Jacob's trouble. Remember what it says. Great is Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. It's not Gog and Magog, it's Zechariah 12. Nobody in Zechariah 12 gets a sprained ankle in that battle, that I can see. Okay, I'm Moshe. My wife is Rivka. Please pray for us for peace, safety, protection, and joy. Pray for our healing. Please keep praying for my hernia and my abdomen. Things seem to be improving. And pray for my vision if you would too. Thank you. I have all the old ailments. Pray for the animals and pets. They be happy, healthy, and whole. Thank you for the offerings. Offering information is in the description box and in the chat. And I could take PayPal now. Just send me an email for the link. I don't like putting the link up. You get all kinds of idiots. Send me an email at israelgiving with the number 7, israelgiving, one word, the digit 7 at gmail.com. Israel spelled with an A-E, not E-A, A-E. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for better offerings. And pray we don't get that much rain this weekend, please, please. And pray for better videos. I think I said that. And I hope you got something out of this. And make sure you're subscribed. And I'll keep giving it to you as I get it. And these are very interesting times. And remember, lift up your head, your redemption draweth nigh. Prophecy being fulfilled. All things work to good for those that love the Lord. Don't worry about it. He will deliver you from the wrath to come. You'll be okay. go into your chambers and stay there for a little while until it passes. Don't worry, it's going to be okay. So long as you're a real believer, it's going to be okay. He's God. People are going to learn how powerful he really is. They don't know yet, believe me. Super duper powerful. On that note, I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I am out. Thank you.